The Distributed Ledger Foundation is addressing a burning business problem in this blockchain community and distributed ledger ecosystem. And that is that we have to synchronize the fast-moving developments on the technology side, on the code side, with an equal amount of work and investment in the governance side, the rule set side. So synchronizing the technology tools with the governance rules is really the focus of the Distributed Ledger Foundation. We think it's important that best practices, that open standards, and that a real clear look at aligning the financial incentives of stakeholders in these new business models is a paramount priority for the community at large and the focus of the Distributed Ledger Foundation. Because there's so much money moving into this space, we have this phenomenon where each blockchain technology or each variety of that work has spawned its own foundations, its own set of organizations that are supportive of a particular kind of implementation. So when the Distributed Ledger Foundation was on the drawing boards, we really saw it as an opportunity to step back and think about the requirements holistically for governance. So the Distributed Ledger Foundation is importantly neutral, it's nonprofit, it's technology agnostic, and it's global. And we think those are the attributes that will provide kind of the staying power for the Center of Excellence and the contributions that the Distributed Ledger Foundation wants to make to the community at large. And by that we mean not only technologists, but policymakers, legislators, and regulators, because we're going to need both technology tools and governance rules to be synchronized if we truly want to expand the marketplace that blockchain has so interestingly ignited. Well, we are not a standards development organization, but we think we can make a very important and very concrete contribution to the work of ISO and other organizations that are beginning to take up various aspects of the blockchain challenge. So we want to work with those that are already involved with researching smart contracts, for example. So by working with the Accord Foundation and helping them develop open standards for smart contracts, that's an example of the work that we want to do. We want to build on what's built. So that's why we started at the Stanford School of Law and Informatics, because they've got years and years worth of investment and research in blockchain governance. We want to be able to both catalyze that and bring that to a wider global audience. Regulation is coming, there's no doubt about that. But I think it's important to think about what kind of regulation this is. We tend to, here in the States, think about the SEC and other federal organizations that are beginning to take up some of the challenges in this space. But just in the US alone, we have 6 states that have already introduced and passed legislation regarding blockchain and distributed ledger technology. So you think about that, but you have to remind yourself that this is a global phenomenon. So regulations, whether they be in the state of Colorado or Arizona, or issued by the SEC or even the FTC, are only one part of this global puzzle. So the ambition of the foundation is to really try and knit together the policymakers, the legislators, and the regulators, not only on K Street in Washington, D.C., but also in the city in London, as well as Singapore, Brussels, etc. It's only when we knit together those regulatory approaches can we begin to have the kind of stability and reliability in these enterprise class systems that are coming. Well, real world concerns for this technology are no different than others. It is trustworthiness. Can we create systems that transact at very high volumes, velocities, and varieties, and yet be secure, and yet be privacy protecting? So those concerns are really taken up on a global consensus basis. What we have to do is to work with government policymakers, regulators, and legislators so that they can adapt existing tools to this new environment. A couple of examples, well, 3 examples. One, it's clear that even in these new systems, that to know your customer, KYC is going to be important. Also, there's no doubt that in these new currencies and coin systems, anti-money laundering is going to be a rightful place for regulators to begin. And lastly, in the LEI, the legal entity identity, we're going to have to know who we're dealing with. I think what we're going to see in this case is regulators and legislators using tools that they already know and trust. The tools are threefold: know your customer, KYC, anti-money laundering, and legal entity identity. Those 3 cornerstone principles of regulation are going to be adapted in some form or fashion to this exciting new technology and the very new business models that are required to deploy it on a global basis. The foundation is starting out with an open slate. What we're going to be doing is really 3 things. One is what we call an international consultation. We're going to be talking to the best and brightest minds in the blockchain world, and we're going to be looking particularly for an opportunity to talk about these key elements of governance in different geographic world capitals. The second thing we're going to do is to reach out and collaborate with other organizations already in the space. And many people have commented how noisy and crowded this space is already, with foundations and different kinds of business organizations supporting different variations on the distributed ledger theme. The third thing we intend to do is, having established our bona fides and having reached out to our colleagues, we think that we can be an umbrella organization that really does have the credibility as a nonprofit, technology agnostic global organization to move swiftly on governance issues that really respond to burning business problems. So we've started out deliberately without a board, because we want to be very intentional about recruiting not only opinion leaders, but also deep thinkers in governance. We want to do that from a worldwide perspective. And we think by the end of the year, we should be able to move to that next phase.